No, no problem.
Hi, thank you, Jennifer, and welcome, Jennifer Loftus. And I have to say, and I need to take a minute today to just compliment you and thank you so much. We're so grateful for your leadership and for your willingness to collaborate with academic counseling. Over the years, I've worked with amazing math chairs like, Jamie Campbell, Brown and Moore, Pam Gunther, Jared Hirsch. And I have to say that the communication has never been as good, as strong as with you. So thank you so much for being here today. And we are, um, happy to have you. And
Great.
I would love to start with one question that Lydia brought up to my attention yesterday regarding the revised math flow chart, and that was that we didn't see Math 149 in there. And I don't know if that was just an omission, unintentional omission, or if there were changes to
Yeah,
Math 1.
so the 150, you'll notice in the 150 box, it says that there's a pre-calculus prerequisite.
Mhm.
And that pre-calculus prerequisite for next year can be met in two ways, or three ways, I guess. High school pre-calculus, or the 137, 138 sequence, or Math 149. The following year, that's kind of why we took it off. The following year, those pre-calculus prerequisites will be optional for students while our pre-calculus course undergoes its validation study. If we decide to do that, we haven't quite yet decided which course we're submitting for validation. But for 2 years, the prerequisite will be optional. So what we did with the flow chart was to kind of take those prerequisites, since there's so many pathways into 150, take them off. And since soon they're going to be optional, just so that we're not constantly like every year making huge changes to the flow chart, it'll just be subtle changes. Like next year, where it says there's a pre-calculus prerequisite, in spring of 2025, we'll need to change that to optional prerequisite. And so, yeah, we wanted the changes on the flow chart to kind of be minimal as we're in this transition phase with AB 1705. So that's why it's not there. Does that make sense? It's still
A lot of
listed on the
sense to me.
COR. It's
Mhm.
still listed on the COR and in the course description that a 138 and 149 would satisfy a prerequisite. But given that there's multiple pathways to there, that's why we took it off the chart.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jen. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And something that I have brought to your attention, and that you asked me, well, what's the impact or what's the likely number of Math 131 sections? And we have a lot of great minds here today. So, I wasn't sure how to respond to that because it's difficult to predict the amount of students that will need Math 131 now that the articulation between Math 130 and Math 34 AB at UCSB is changing, effective fall 24. So, I'd love for others to chime in if you have a sense. I think I counted the 130 sections, approximately there were 10 sections. So I don't know what percentage of those 130 students, are UCSB or have UCSB as a target transfer school, and the amount of Math 131 sections that we as ACC would predict that we would need this summer, fall, and next spring, I think is going to be where it's really going to be critical. So, I'd love to discuss that a little bit more before we open it up to everyone.
Yeah, so I was going to ask Jens, because I had already submitted the fall schedule by the time you had brought that to my attention. So I was going to ask Jens for possibly putting a standby section on for this coming fall, just so that we have one already planned and then a second one on standby. And then looking ahead to spring, we can definitely schedule more sections if there seems to be demand. So we could probably look into it a little bit more before we write the spring schedule to see how many students we might be able to accommodate. The only thing with that course, right, it's hard to schedule since it doesn't always fill, but there are a good number of faculty that are eager and willing to teach it if there does seem to be demand. So it would just be a matter of, if the sections are filling, having Jens approve new sections being added. We don't have one planned for summer. We don't usually offer that course in summer. And then I'm not quite sure if it's super urgent to have it on fall, given that they'd have to take 130 first. So I'm not sure, right? Because it's not in effect until this fall, if students that were graduating with their business or moving on from, transferring this summer, if they would still need it or not. So short answers, we're willing to add more sections if there seems to be demand. And yeah, it's just with enrollment history, it's not a class that fills up. So, asking for another section, it might be like, why? And I'll say, well, counseling thinks,
that makes
counseling
total
thinks we
sense.
might see demand. So standby would be more likely. And if the first one opens, then we can open the standby.
Yeah, that sounds good. And let us know if you need help, because if we see the 131 closed, that one section, we know what happened with standbys this semester. And like I shared with you, it seems like having a course in standby backfires, at least this past year. So, we hopefully, we'll be advocating for another Math 131 section, and let us know if you need help with that.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, well, I'd love to open it up to everyone. If I forwarded the information that Jen Loftus sent us regarding additional questions and concerns regarding the new changes. And so I'm just curious if any of you have additional questions or concerns, or you want to discuss anything else.
I was just wondering if IR would be able to look at the data of all of the students that are enrolled in Math 130 and connect that with their major to then be able to help us, and maybe potentially the transfer school, to be able to potentially figure and project out how many 131s we need.
Yeah, I can ask Melanie Rogers to look into that for me. It's I don't know if you all know though, is it just to UCSB, or would all business administration students most likely need to take both courses now? I don't think for our degree they need both, right?
It's primarily going to affect UCSB, but there are so many other UCs that have historically required 131, including UC San Diego, Davis, Santa Cruz,
Riverside.
Riverside for business administration. And it's not just business administration, or in the case of UCSB, econ or econ and accounting, it's environmental studies, it's biological sciences. And so I think the impact will be significant, and that we'll probably be looking, when everything settles, to like needing 2 or 3 sections of Math 131 per semester. So that's a good point, Vanessa. Anyone else?
I have a question about success rates within these classes. If you guys have been, I'm sure you guys are looking at that with the takeaway of prerequisites, but I'm curious if you guys have information about success rates without or limited prerequisites in the Math 130, 150, etc.
We haven't had students without taking.
Oh, that's right. It's going to be coming. So thank
so we
you.
will
Yes.
be keeping our eye on it. The state, right, has their statewide data that demonstrates that, especially for disproportionately impacted students, that having them enroll directly into their degree required course, given that a prerequisite has like a gap in the pipeline where they can, they can fall off track during their prerequisites and never make it to their the course that they need for their degree. But the idea is that they place right into their required course and maybe are enrolled in a support course that's has a higher success rate, especially for disproportionately impacted populations, than a prerequisite pathway. We will be watching it, but it's not like we have a choice of whether or not we can go back to the prerequisite way. We're trying to hold on to them as long as we can, given that we feel like personally for our own students and what we see in the classroom, that prerequisites better prepare students for the class. but I'm afraid we don't have a choice in it. So our options are to include co-requisite support, and there is a choice for us to make between having it be required or be optional. And so we listed it for Math 130, and we'll likely do the same for Math 150 if our pre-calculus prerequisite does not pass validation, that the co-requisite support course would be required. So it is, additional coursework, but it's the content that they would have been receiving in a prerequisite class. They just take it concurrently with the calculus course, and have more time with the instructor. And it's weaved into the course to where they kind of don't even see a seam between the two courses. They'll have the pre-calculus sort of taught within the context of the calculus course. That's the game plan moving forward, but yeah, we won't know our internal, like our own success rates and how we compare to statewide numbers until this fall when we start offering 130 with 130C. The 150 with 150C, which we offer, it's an optional, right? Those are students that do have a pre-calculus prerequisite met already. They're just in the calculus course with support, but the calculus with support is a highly successful class compared to the standard courses. But it's optional. So we only fill maybe one section a semester. And for 160C, this last semester, we even had trouble filling the class. So we ended up canceling the co-requisite. But moving forward, all of the co-requisites will be linked to a standalone class, will be linked to the class that it's supporting, so that it's the same instructor. The coursework can be weaved into the calculus course so that there's not it doesn't feel like extra work for the students. It's just part of the course's work. And yeah, the number of those sections is remaining small as it's still optional now, but some students for Math 130 starting this fall will have it required. So we have 2 sections planned. Because again, right, it's hard to know the number of students that will place in that lowest band where it's required. And so, yeah, so we're starting with 2. We have a couple of faculty members on standby kind of, thinking that, I could potentially teach that class if those 3 end up filling. And we're hearing that there's more demand or need for the courses that have the co-requisite attached to it.
Can you speak to how it went with the proctoring or not proctoring?
The in-person exam?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so we did that pre-COVID. And so it was a matter of returning to the way that we used to do things in the communication with students. We had a lot of students confused by the way the courses appeared on the schedule because there's all these extra lines with dates and times listed. And it miscommunicates that those dates and times are flexible technically for the students. If they're not able to make that day and time, they are able to reschedule on an alternative day and time. And the instructors are aware of this, that students, may not be available at the time listed and provide an optional alternative time. And then for students that are out of area, it was unclear, since there was a classroom scheduled, that out of area students would be eligible for that class as well and be able to get proctoring done at an outside facility. So we've worked a lot alongside with CAC and talked a bit with Maria, and we've ended up for fall and for summer and for fall listing those classes as online, but the section text, if you click on the CRN on the schedule, it goes into detail about the dates that the proctoring is planned for, but communicates to students that the dates are tentative. The instructor may need to change them for whatever reason, campus closures, etc. And the fact that they're flexible, so that if you need to find a proctor that's outside of those times provided by your instructor, that there's a website and a way to go about finding a place that can do that. In terms of the success rate and how often students are needing to find proctors, my online instructors have not really cited any abnormal growth in that population of students. It's a small number in each of their sections of students that are out of area that are looking for proctors. And not a whole lot of difficulty finding one. There is a site that anywhere they live in the United States, there's the NCTA org. It's like a proctoring locator. There's some in our local area, like there's a Ventura College offers proctoring. I think Northridge, Cal State Northridge has a place where students outside of their college can come take tests. We're trying to get a testing center on our own campus to provide a little bit more flexibility even for our local students. But in terms of the success rates, they're similar to where they were prior to COVID, and the demand for proctoring off campus is comparable to pre-COVID. So I think it's working well. The online faculty are happier with the ability to assess the students in a way that they can, identify verify the identity of the student and making sure that they're the ones that are submitting the work. Given that math is all, the solutions are very uniform, that it's, it's hard to test for whether or not it was written by another person without having the person sitting in front of you writing the solution down. We're working with DSPS a lot. There are a couple of students that are, needing accommodations and working with DSPS, especially with the in-person proctored exams. And if they're not able to come to campus because of whatever accommodations they're needing, special furniture or things like that. But they're being taken on a case-by-case basis, and faculty just work with DSPS to make sure that all students are accommodated. Did that answer your question? Is that okay?
Yes, thank
Mary,
you.
yeah, Mary, I thought you had your hand raised, right?
I did, thank you. It was just a quick question, and maybe you mentioned Jennifer earlier, and I know that the courses are still to be determined, but do we know how many units they are for each of the support courses at this point?
The co-requisite courses are 2 units.
2 units.
They're pass, no pass.
Okay.
They're offered pass, no pass only.
Okay.
Yeah, and certain regular sections are linked through the math combination course option in the scheduling program. So the enrollment in one requires enrollment in the other for certain sections.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did not know that. The NCTA, I was under the impression that it had to be in-person proctored exams at SBCC. And I just spoke to a student who's in Oklahoma, and I was telling him it was not possible. So that is really great information.
Yeah, it does not need. That's one of the reasons why we fought so hard to remove the dates and times off of the schedule. We're not trying to hide that information from students. We want them to be aware of it. But the idea is they can take the exam in person, but at any place and any time, technically, that fits their time zone, right? As long as it has been approved by the instructor. And they'll even give like a day or two, if we're giving an exam on a Monday and the student in their time zone, that would be on a Sunday for them. They might have difficulty finding a proctor, right? They're outside. Proctoring service just needs to be okay through the instructor. And then the instructor sends the exam straight to the proctor. The proctor gets instructions for how to return the exam back to the instructor. And it's a process that the online faculty are used to doing. So they help the students navigate that once they're in the class and receive the proctoring information, and how to get their proctoring location approved and how to find one and all of that stuff.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of our fellow colleagues suggested that in the math flow chart for Finance 100, that maybe we indicate that it is the only course that is limited to transferability to the CSU. And
Okay.
so, I think it is something worth looking into and seeing if maybe we can add a footnote to that, because everything else on that chart is UC CSU transferable, but Finance 100 at this time is restricted to CSU transferability.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Just a clarification on that. It's transferable to both UC and CSU, but it doesn't meet the math admissions requirement for the UC, only for the CSU. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so I would be open to whatever change you all as counselors would recommend. We put it on there, given that it's listed on the SBCC area E-1 for degrees from SBCC as an option, right? But even in the course descriptions, part of the flow chart refers students to the course descriptions and then to counseling to try to see which course is right for them. So yeah, whatever you all would recommend, we can add another box to the second page, right? Where, you know, we go into detail the transferability, but the course descriptions as well have all of that information listed too. I don't know if that's a better place and just referring them to there. Open to suggestions though. Yeah, it was easy enough to change now that it's pretty much altered the way that it needs to be, but adding little things like that should be no problem if you had more recommendations along those lines.
I have one one on the assessment website. You if you go on there and it will say questions and it will say, or further resources, excuse me, it will say what math course is best for me. And in the past, I believe there were areas where students can kind of look and see what that math would entail and possibly look at, can they solve some of the equations or questions that would be appropriate for that math section. But when you go on it now, it just takes students into the career and academic pathways. But I was wondering if there was a reason why that was taken down, and would that be something that we could put back up for students to use as a resource?
Okay, so you cut out just a little bit on that. So were you saying the pages where it had sample work? Is that the sample?
Correct. In the
problem?
past, you would be able to click on, math 130, and you could look at the problems that
Right.
would be.
So having placement guides that involve
is not compliant with AB 1705. That's why we pulled that down.
Say that again. I'm sorry, you cut out.
Sure. Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm in the car now. The placement guides that we use to help students self-place, right? If they're trying to determine which option they might want to choose. Placement guides that have worked out problems is not in compliance with AB 1705. And so that's why we took the pages that had like, these are Math 137 problems. And if you feel comfortable with all of these concepts, then you're ready for, it kind of told them which class they might be ready for. We're not allowed to have math in those placement guides.
Is there a creative way for us to maybe even put on your website information about Math 130 just so that students can kind of I think it's helpful for them to look at that information. I mean, we get asked that a lot from our local high school students. So I'm was just curious about that.
Yeah. So I think given that we can't have them on there as placement guides, but referring them to the math lab, I think they would benefit from actually knowing where the math lab is. And then I'm having a conversation with Nina. We've also updated our course descriptions. So it kind of has a little bit in there about what we would consider, like, if you're ready for this class. It kind of says, that this class assumes a little bit of this particular level of understanding. And if you don't have it, then make sure you sign up for the co-requisite. It's in the course description now. And we plan on, Sergio had asked me to write up a little blurb about each of the co-requisite support classes. And I plan on doing that and sharing it with you. We just have been very busy with other things with the schedule and all of that. But I do plan to have that available so that counselors can promote the co-requisite courses. But pretty much the placement is determined. Everybody is able to place into a transfer level course. And depending on their major, they don't really have a choice to move down a level or up a level. It's just based on their high school performance and GPA. They would either get, a business calculus course, and if they are nervous about it, then they should take the co-requisite support. But referring them to the math lab where they could maybe view the textbook or talk to a tutor for the course, or even I would say send them directly to one of the instructors for the course if they're unsure about it, and they could ask a little bit more about what the course entails. But they're not supposed to place themselves below their requirements, if that makes sense. So showing them math work and then them feeling uncomfortable with it, so then they decide to go a level below. That's exactly what I think the state is trying to avoid. So I don't know if that answers your question. Pretty
It
much the
does,
course-
but it also, I mean, a lot of students, once we start talking to them about how much math some majors are, you know, they'll want to know, okay, what does this really entail for me and what does it look like? So we show them the flow chart and then they'll go, okay, what are these? I mean, I am not a math person, so you know, these are the questions I'm not able to answer. So I don't mind referring them as well, but that is something. And then they sometimes oftentimes change their major once they see how much math potentially, and then they'll go into a potential, you know, in a couple instances, I've worked with students into a math 114, 117 course because they have changed their major. So that was the reason I was bringing that up, is because some students really do like to see that. They like to see a visual, and the flow chart helps tremendously to see how much math, but then they like to dial it down a bit. So that was the reason
The
behind it.
long-term goal is to create, so for the ACC website, to have on our page videos that kind of advertise or promote each of the courses. And so we'll go into detail about what that course is about, who that course would be most useful for, like given their interest. And I can make sure that they include in those promotional videos sort of the level of expectation of the work, if you think it would be helpful. We do plan to replace what was there with more than just, oh, look at these sample maps. It just takes a while to build some of this resource material out. So we had to take down the actual math work that they would be looking at. Replaced it with the pathways, since that gives them a starting off point. And then, we're hoping to have, as part of the ACC math page, promotional videos for each course, so that we can
That's
make
awesome.
sure students know what they're getting into. We've updated all the course descriptions to be longer as well, and have a more thorough description, so that students can identify the course that suits their interests, especially if they're going with the stat/liberal arts side of things, and have some choices, like what's the difference between 118 and 117, and maybe 137 is still right for you, given that you're not quite sure what you want your major to be. It's a great course that will leave more doors open, right? Like you could go into 130 after taking 137 and be completely prepared. So it's just kind of working with what we're allowed to provide students and what we're able to create in the time frame. And if you have suggestions for what students would benefit from seeing the most, then send them our way so we can incorporate them into the course.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jennifer.
Yeah.
So I see it's 1:33. Do we have any other questions? We had originally asked Jen to be with us for 30 minutes. Jen, do you have a couple more minutes? I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. You know, looking at the draft for summer 24 class schedule, you know, I noticed, for example, stats courses, they're 5 weeks, math 114, I believe they're 5 weeks. And I was just curious overall, the perspective of the math department to moving back to a 2 summer, you know, sessions instead of 1. And if we were to move back to a 2 summer session, I mean, because currently I don't see the possibility of students completing any sequences in summer. If we move back to a 2 summer session, would they be, do you think the math department would be supportive of like 150, 160, 200, 210, et cetera, over a summer?
Yeah, so we discussed the summer session, that the summer 2023, right? And for calculus and above, 5 weeks was not enough time. Students that took 150 and or 160 and then landed in our 200 level courses after taking those courses in summer, the retention of the material was not strong. Students didn't like it at all. They would tell us the same thing, like, I don't even remember what happened in those 5 weeks type of deal. So we definitely knew for this summer that for the Math 150, Math 160, you know, the kind of the more sequential courses, that we wanted to keep them 6 weeks. If we moved back to a single summer session that allowed for 2 6-week sessions, then yes, we would go back to the way that we had it before the single session with with the shortening of classes to 5 weeks. We just did not see 5 weeks serving the students at all for the higher level classes. For the lower level classes, you know, the ones that aren't sequential, we wanted to offer 5-week and 8-week classes, and we're encouraged to make sure we had a 10-week option on there as well. We wanted to make sure that we had classes on the schedule that would serve high school students, as well as allow students to take multiple classes during summer. So we had a lot of 5 weeks, an 8-week, to serve the high school students that wanted a longer course, but we're still in session when summer starts for us. And then we added the 2 10 weeks at, you know, our dean and Maria's suggestion. They actually said counseling were the ones that were the reason that they had you know, valued having 10-week courses on the schedule. So we have a few 8-week, a few 10-week. If we did move back to the same length summer session as prior, with 2 6-week sessions able to happen, then yeah, we would go back to allowing students to flow through the sequence. But 2 5-week for the ones that are sequential was just too much, too fast. And so we decided not to offer the 5-week classes for the higher level courses.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. I think, you know, it gives like a stronger rationale and just background knowledge for us to have that discussion with students if they were to ask us. Well,
6 weeks is incredibly fast at this. And
yes.
so putting it into 5 weeks, it was too much for the higher levels, especially since they need to retain that information to use it in their next course. The sequential ones in particular is where we were really struggling with what we saw as a result of last summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I don't see any additional hands, and we just greatly appreciate your time, and thank you so much again for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend. And I don't know if you have any closing remarks.
If you have any more questions, please send them my way. I'm a little bit better when I can compose with writing than public speaking type deal. But yeah, any questions you all have or suggestions, send them my way. I can send them with Yen. Yen is going to be taking over as department chair in August. And he's, you know, I'm sitting down with him on a regular basis, kind of getting him ready for taking over as chair. And one of the things that I want to emphasize to him is communication with counseling is really important for our enrollment and for getting students, you know, placed into the right courses, given that it's unclear now about the pathways into and how you know, which pathway students should take. So any questions you have, send them my way. Any suggestions, I'd love to hear them, and I'll introduce you all again when it has turned next year. And I appreciate you taking the time to help us out with our students.
Thank you, Jen. Yen and I serve on Scholastic Standards Committee, so
Awesome.
we know each other, and I admire him. He's a great person and very student-centered, so I look forward to working with him as well. All right, thank you so much. Have a good weekend. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Sergio. So next we have Cosima up talking about probation and disc ball. Thanks, Cosima.
Yeah, hi everybody. Happy Friday. I'm going to share my screen here and put this up in front of us. This is just the PowerPoint that I used last year for trying to get all the changes through. I just did some updates to it, but I'll go ahead and put that on the screen and so that it's bigger. So I am just going to basically just give you a sense of what's happened since May, June. And the main thing is that we were able to get the recommended changes that you all helped me with. And I'm sure you may remember bits and pieces, and you're going to hear a lot of repetitive stuff in terms of just reminders about what those changes were. And then Jennifer and I had a meeting with Christina on Monday so that she could provide me some information that I could share with you about kind of where she's at with actually everything moving forward. So hopefully that will help get some clarification. And then I will send out a Google Doc and you can put some questions on there that will then get submitted to her so she can answer those. And then I can answer any stuff just about kind of like the stuff that got changed with the Academic Senate and the BP and AP. So big one was, of course, the name change. And so it's now academic notice and required academic pause. The big focal point for why we wanted to do this is in part the specific GPA stuff, which we're going to review, was Title V changes. It was sort of a have to. But the overall big picture, not only the Title V changes, but also those changes as they relate to the name change were in relationship to being more equity focused, right? Less punitive, trying to optimize success for our students. And we're, working long-term, she's working long-term, school's working long-term on ways we can intervene in a more helpful and meaningful way. So what we know to be true is that now students will have 3 semesters and a cumulative GPA below 1.75 before they're dismissed. The probation being on 12 units below a 2.0 hasn't changed. That's remained the same. So the big piece, there's 2 big pieces. The first one is now it's 3 consecutive semesters before dismissal and the cumulative GPA below 1.75. And then the second piece is in relationship to the exception, which was 6 units. So when a student, let's say their GPA was 1, they had to go away for a semester, and then they want to come back that next semester. In order to continue the following semester, they used to have 6 units above a 2.0. And now they only have to have 3 units with a 2.0. It doesn't mean that even that they're going to be off of the academic notice status, right? Because we know sometimes that can take students several semesters, and it might even take them longer now, actually, with taking fewer units. However, that was one of the main changes that was associated with Title V. So this is kind of just summarizing that we made the name change from academic probation to academic notice and progress notice. And then the academic dismissal to required academic pause. And then here's another way of just kind of explaining that, again, it's 1.75 GPA and 3 consecutive semesters before they're asked to they're dismissed. And when a student wants to come back, it only needs to be 3 units in order to come back. The certified letter and the psychologically attuned language that I had proposed and hoped that we might be able to get some funding to kind of send out and do some stuff is actually not going to happen for a while. And that actually leads really to the kind of updates from Christina. So what she indicated is that nothing is going to happen until fall of 24 because everything is dependent upon the Banner 9 upgrade and implementation, not the website, not the letters, not new changes in terms of ways in which we're intervening with students. So that's kind of on hold. Christina is working with A&R and Becky and Phil Carter to try to start like thinking through some changes in relationship to Banner and how to kind of communicate effectively to students. There are, it sounds like a lot of conversations happening around the 1.75 and how that might be confusing or impacting students in relationship to their financial aid. And we talked about how, right now it's still confusing for students, right? So they come in and we're to have that conversation with them that, the pace of progression, through the financial aid is one process, and to definitely speak with their financial aid advisor. And we are focused on the academic status piece, right? And supporting them in that way. So really the language wouldn't change much because we're not supposed to necessarily, have to serve as a financial aid advisor or give them all of those details. We're to keep kind of those boundaries separate. So though there might be changes behind the scenes, this language would still remain the same, right? And encouraging the students to communicate with the financial aid advisor and that might really be the only, they would have to deal with kind of the other pieces, and anything past that, I don't really have any answers for, but that if you have questions around that, that would certainly be an area to put in the document that I can share with her. So what she also discussed was just the overall knowledge that we really do need to have a more cohesive student services approach, right, to what we're doing with students on academic notice and students that have been dismissed and coming back. That right now it's kind of like each department, like EOPS might be doing it one way, we're doing certain pieces as well, and that it's kind of disjointed. So she acknowledged this and mentioned that with there being a new hire, right, with IT, that Starfish might be able to be leveraged to kind of support efforts because there's now backing and funding. And she said there was more to follow on that. She said that she'd be more than happy to come talk to us in the meeting, in a meeting in fall, to kind of give us updates about where they're at with kind of then moving forward once Banner's had the implementation. And I know I had hoped to sort of get work on the updated letter because I was really excited in doing my presentations about ways in which we can kind of engage students that have come out of, the academic probation status and what they've learned, and get students involved. But all of that, again, none of that's going to happen until the Banner 9 gets implemented. So that's kind of my update. I'll send out a Google Doc, but I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to, let's see if I can go back. Why can't I go back? I'm trying to go back. I think I'm going to exit out and then go back to this screen, right here. So any questions in relationship to this that I can answer? And I can't really see everybody because I've got the screen share happening. So maybe somebody can help me with that. I know it sounded like there were questions at a meeting where I was sick and out. So hopefully maybe some of this answered that. Or
Hi, Cosima. I have a question.
uh-huh.
Yeah, to me, I'm not clear on the first day of the semester whether or not the deadline to appeal has expired. And, I find myself reaching out to Christina's office, talking to Becky and trying to figure it out. And what's also confusing is that for late start classes, right, it seems like a deadline at the beginning of the semester doesn't make as much sense. So that would be one thing that I think, especially if we're trying to increase enrollment, to, maybe work with our dean and figure out if there's a more, I don't know, detailed way of presenting the deadlines so that it's clear for all of us from the very beginning, and also address late start possibilities for students who might appeal after the, standard deadline for 16-week.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's definitely vital and important. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And that would be something you definitely want to put on there as a suggestion and recommendation for her to consider. So those are the types of things that she said she wanted to know, any recommendations and thoughts. And that's definitely, I think, something that, like, prior to the Banner 9, I think could probably be worked on, I would hope, right? Yeah, so note that, and when I send out that Google Doc would be a great thing to add to it. Yeah.
I'll make sure to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And myself, even with these changes, if I'm not looking at this, I'm forgetting it, right? So it's always these if, ands, or buts. It's very difficult to try to remember the nuances of these things. And so, when the change gets fully implemented, I'll probably be with Christina on my part of kind of helping, I'm there and here to say it's 1.75 consecutive semesters you know, it's and 2, right? So it's not just 1.75, it's like and 3 consecutive semesters. So it'll be interesting to see how that all turns out, right? We know there's so many unique student situations that pop up. And she was saying something about how right now, even there's students like getting through the system even, and that some students that were supposed to be dismissed are enrolled, and that she's trying to be as flexible as possible. So yeah. But any other questions just about the things that I worked on last year to kind of help move this through?
Christina, I had a question. For students who sometimes we meet with them and we realize that they could do like maybe academic renewal, or they could do the excuse withdrawal petition. If that was approved, does that automatically update the student to kind of get removed from say dismissal or probation?
So those are things I don't know the answers to. So I'm not like dealing with all of these pieces. I specifically work just on trying to make these changes to the AP and BP. And that's something, again, that Christina is completely in charge of, and would be an excellent, again, question to write down for her. Maybe moving forward that she'll kind of enlist me or have me become more of what we know we've had in the past as sort of somebody that understands all of those pieces. But I think that's an excellent question I don't know the answer to. Yeah, I would definitely write that down. So anything else that you can think of?
I want to add a comment, and this
Yeah.
is kind of an odd comment. So sometimes like there's a lot of questions that come up. I don't think we can think of them sometimes with the policy in front, but I remember a student and where she was on I think she was on a limited set of units for that term coming back because she was readmitted on petition. So she was cosmetology and she was set for fall for a certain number of units. And I reached out to Christina and they were able to increase the unit load for spring because the unit load was set for fall. And we clarified that she was going to take courses in spring. It's a different time load, full load for spring. So even though it appears like it would be 14 maybe for fall, it's not really for fall. It would be divided like 7 and 7 a term for the cosmetology program because that's a little bit of an odd load, but it worked out. And so I just wanted to share, like, whenever we don't know, we want to ask because sometimes it works. And so in that situation, it worked out for the student.
Yeah, one of the things that she said is like right now she just wants to make things almost as easy as possible for students that's why I think we were able to send things through to her late or whatever. So it sounds like, you know, especially since some of these changes are going to make it easier for students moving forward, that meanwhile that she wants to try to work with students, and there I guess a lot of students are coming through her office. So it sounds like that's one of those situations. Thanks, Antonia. Marisol? I think I saw Marisol's hand, maybe not.
Yeah, thank you for all your work on this. I was wondering, have any of our department like counselors actually gone through the dismissal like petition? It is quite daunting how long it is for students, and I don't know if we can like maybe, you know, shorten it a little bit and, you know, look at the language and just, I've had students like really have anxiety, like a deer in headlights, like this is a lot that I have to fill out just to come here or to stay on campus. And I just, you know, I was like, well, I understand and I'm going to support you as you're going through it. We could do it together, but I didn't realize how many pages it was until I had actually done the new updated form. But I didn't know if we have a say or if anybody else has seen it or gone through it themselves to see it.
Yeah, I sure hope we have a say. I mean, I think that's part of what we were hoping where we might be at this point is where we could start coming together and doing those interventions. I was hoping like a while ago that I could get a group together, help me with the letter and do all that, but we're not there. But that's why I think it's really invaluable that, you know, it was great. She was like, get a Google Doc, write it down, you know, and then we hold on to that information because, and, you know, we did have early on, you know, Paloma, when she was in charge, created a work group, and there are like, I can't tell you how large that, if anyone was in those meetings, all the just amazing ideas that we had in terms of interventions for students. But I think we definitely have a voice and a say in something like that if it's going to hinder a student from wanting to return. So definitely make sure to, again, add that to the document.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or ideas or questions again in relationship to this part that I can kind of clarify or you wanted to share? All right, well, I'll turn it back over to Vanessa, but thank you all so much for your support again last year and giving input and being there to listen to me as I came and met the group and tried to share where I was at with everything. Yeah, guess we'll see how it all unfolds with Banner 9, right? Fingers crossed. Okay, thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Kusima. I was wondering if you all wanted to just take a 10-minute break. It's been a lot of information so far. Go out, see the sign, grab some water, go to the restroom, and then we can return back at 2:04, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started, and it's fine for people to trickle back in. What I'm going to be presenting on is how to respond to in danger of failing flags. So Christy created this PowerPoint, so I want to give that credit to her. And so this last week, Christy sent out to all of the students who have gotten progress surveys who belong to special programs. She sent out an email to all of those students letting them know that they have been identified as having an in danger of failing flag. And so all of those students have received that. And the deadline for the teachers to identify students that are in special programs that are in danger of failing is this Monday, March 11th at 11:59 p.m. So Christy will also send out another email to new students that have been identified between last Sunday and this upcoming Monday. She'll send that out on Tuesday morning. So what does that mean for all of us counselors in ACC? We would like as a department to make sure that we close the loop. So as students start to come in and see us, especially as the summer schedule and the fall schedule becomes available, we want to make sure that you all can remember to, when you're pulling up the student in Starfish in their what's called their card, you'll want to make sure that you're taking a look at tracking items. So what you'll do is you'll just click on this tracking item that's in here. That's for all students. And then you'll be able to see, this will be the next screen. It'll show you if a student has an in danger of failing flag or even kudos. And so if you click on the plus sign that's right here, it'll open up to see the comments that the professor has written in there. And it'll also tell you right here in the middle where it says created, the date that it was created and the professor. And then for context, it'll actually tell you this student's class. We blurred these out because this is an actual student, so we didn't want to give that information away. And then once you click on that plus sign, this is an example of what a student might have as far as a comment from their professor. So just as a just so you all know, there are some just block default in danger of failing flag wording that professors can choose to use. So it'll make it easy for them to send that comment to students. Most professors are pretty good and add more information. So like this professor, they use the default wording, which is, it is not too late to make the changes necessary for your success in this class. But then they went further on and said, you are turning in assignments on time, but your quiz grades are below passing for this course, and gives the students overall grade. So they have an idea of where they're struggling. And then it also says to please contact your counselor to discuss options. And so that's really helpful information so that when the student comes in, then we can make sure that we are connecting with them, letting them know if they haven't seen in their abundance of emails that they do have an in danger of failing flag from the professor. And then you can also open it up with them if they haven't seen that and read it together with the student. And then our part, so when we are seeing the students and opening up the flags and talking with the student about different successful interventions that they can use, whether that's making them aware of tutoring options or to actually have them go and speak with their professor, what we want to do is close the loop so that the professors get that positive reinforcement for identifying the students. And so what we want to do is when you click on the flag, you can also, it'll pop up with this dialog screen, and you'll want to click on where it says comments so that we can write some brief notes to let the professor, and it'll go to the professor to let them know what we did with the student so that we are closing the loop on it. So when you click on comment, you can write a subject, and you can go ahead and write whatever subject you like. We just selected response to in danger of failing flag. And so this is actually a student that Christy met with, and so she wrote in here something very generic, but she wrote, I met with this student and we discussed ways that they can improve in your class. I encourage them to talk to you to see if it's possible to pass or if it's better for them to withdraw. They will meet with me again if they decide to withdraw, so we can adjust their educational plan. So what you want to do is put as much information as possible so that the professor knows what you covered, and of course, whatever you feel comfortable with and the student feels comfortable with. And then you'll want to make sure to check mark the box on the bottom that says send the copy of comment to the flag raiser, which is the professor. And then if you click on the notes, you'll be able to see the professor's note for the flag and then your message back to them. So you can always click on that to see that going back and forth. Sometimes I've had professors actually write back to me saying, thank you so much for closing that loop. And sometimes you won't have any messages, but we just want to make sure that us as counseling faculty are closing the loop for our students who have been identified in special programs in danger of failing. So that is what I was supposed to cover today. Are there any questions about that process or anything that you would like me to go back over? Can't see the screen, so feel free to go ahead and start talking. Oh, Marisol, I see you.
Hey, thanks, Vanessa, for that. I was just wondering, we still get the notifications, kudos, missing assignments, in danger of failing from the previous caseloads that we all had. So we just disregard that, and every just student that books with us, we're just checking on our own, correct?
Correct. Yes. Thank you for bringing that question up. That's a really great question. So, yes, the answer is to just focus on the students that are coming in. The students that you are seeing that are popping up on your homepage when you log on to Starfish, those are students because in the back end, Starfish, we haven't been able to take those out and reassign them to the pathways that we do want to do, and because we're waiting on IT to do that. So you're seeing those sort of students that are from your older caseloads, which is correct, Marisol. So you'd want to highlight the ones that are actually coming in. Because some of those students might be in different programs in your old caseload. And so hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me about how to close the loop in Starfish and make those comments to the professors that are raising the flags? I did want to highlight and that we are trying something different this semester. We are going to have our counseling assistants start calling all of the students who did receive a flag raised for in danger of failing. So in the next few weeks through the end of the semester, we may actually be getting a lot of students that are have been flagged as in danger of failing. So just wanted to put that out there. And thank you so much to the CAs, if any of them are on here, and Christina for doing that work. I know that's a lot. And so thank you so much.
Vanessa, do you think it would be okay if they put, like, while they're booking the appointment, like in danger of failing flag or something? That way we can make sure to tackle that. I don't know.
That's a great question. Great question.
Maybe not that comment for the students, but maybe a flag or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so we will see the flag if we're making sure that we're checking that tracking item, and the CAs are going to be, so each student that they do contact for in danger of failing, they do have their own speed notes, and so the CAs will be entering every student that they meet with into their own Starfish, and they do have a speed note that says in danger of failing outreach, so you'll be able to see that as well. So yeah, absolutely. That'll be documented in their past meeting. Any other questions? Let's stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. Okay. Right, so I see Andrea here, early, perfect Andrea, Dr. Andrea Haupt. She'll be doing the next part of our meeting. She's going to be talking to us about global studies, and it's so nice to see you, Andrea. So I will go ahead and let you take it away. I did want to let you know in our agenda, we did link the flyer and the video that you sent to Andy in the beginning of the semester, so that's there.
Okay, great. And I'm a little bit early, but now is a good time that I take it?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I have essentially is very similar to the video, but I'm going to flesh that out a little bit. And let me see, can I share my PowerPoint with you?
Yes, you have screen sharing, right?
Okay, great. So see them. Oh. Okay, great. So I'm obviously here. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is what I want to discuss. And since I'm going through those items, I won't read them right here. So I want to talk about the Global and International Studies program and what one does with a major in global studies, because I think there's oftentimes a lack of understanding what the major is, and that's not necessarily surprising. So first of all, this field of global and international studies focuses on all things global.
Oh, Andrea, sorry, it sounds like your audio actually got quieter.
Got quieter? Okay, that's not good. I have a new laptop. Let me see here. Let me see if this makes a difference here. I'm going to come to connecting. Can you hear them when I tap? Is that better?
Oh, that's perfect. Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, good. So, so then just let me start over. So, and you can hear me well now? Yes?
It's kind of going in and out again. Anybody else experiencing that?
Yes.
I have a couple.
Yeah, I heard the same.
Yeah, same thing.
It's not consistent? Okay. One moment. Let me just disconnect this here. I have a microphone plugged in. Maybe makes a difference. Okay. Is this better? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. Great. So sorry about the technical. So to start over, then global studies is an interdisciplinary major and focuses on all things global. So that does include the history of globalization and the economic, political, cultural, and societal, environmental aspects of globalization. In that context, we touch on what technology has done to drive globalization forward and how it drives the demand, and also focuses on global problems, of which we have many. And global studies is a relatively young academic discipline, and I'm proud to say that SBCC and UCSB were some of the vanguard institutions to offer that. So the program goes back only to the 1990s, and to keep it short, you can say that it was a dissatisfaction among faculty that thought that talking about global issues in these siloed disciplines of, say, political science, sociology, history, economics, was not sufficient to understand this process of globalization, which is very complex. So it was that drove the global studies course offerings. And in that context, global studies is not the same as international politics or relations, because it's interdisciplinary and we make connections between different disciplines. So international politics or relations goes deeply into the question of how can we understand the dynamics of international politics. Global studies includes that, but is broader. So it's a broader discipline, a broader social science discipline. And I'm talking to you in part, well, one, I want you to learn about the program a little more, but also because our program is in crisis. We've seen Lauren.
Very quiet again.
Oh, I did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not do anything. It's got to be my computer. Can you hear me now again?
I think we can just crank our volume.
I'm so sorry. I don't know. I'm not really controlling that. Let me check one setting, but I don't think that my microphone here is plugged in at all. Let me see. Let me try this.
That's better right now.
We could hear you
This-
better now.
It's better now? Okay,
Yes.
so I have one step I could adjust. If it goes bad again, let me know, please. It's a new laptop, and I'm guessing that's why. Okay, so our program is in crisis because of lower enrollments, which I think impact smaller programs disproportionately. And we're actually at a point where we're canceling classes. And in particular, the Global 102 class was canceled, one of two sections in the fall and in the spring. Part of that is, I think, because we have fewer international students, which we had in our classes to an unusually high degree compared to other majors. And so if the strict cancellation policies that I see right now are there, if they're going to be implemented, and if I didn't have a little more time before this semester to fill the global studies classes, potentially the program will be canceled. So I'm really concerned about that. And this is why I want to educate a little about the program and just sort of underline its importance. And can you hear me now? Well, is that consistent now? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so really briefly then, because it matters in terms of advising students.
Oh no, now it went off on, or it went low, Andrea.
Oh, I'm so frustrating. I'm not doing anything. So let me try this. Plugging in, I plugged in a different microphone. Does that make a difference?
No, it didn't.
Let me try to just check, and I'm really sorry. I did not expect this.
No problem. We started
Sound.
early, so
It's
we
like I
have
said,
plenty of time.
it's a new computer. I've only had this for a week. And I thought everything was in order. So I'm going to check this. I'm checking the microphone right now.
It's still the same.
It's still the same. Okay. How about now? Is this different? I used a different input device.
There we go.
Yes. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm relieved. Okay. So let's go back here. Let's try this again. Okay. So here we go. So career fields, because it is a broad social science major.
I'm sorry, Andrea, it went back out.
I don't know what to do. This is my last. Is this okay?
I don't
So
know if you want to. I was gonna say, I don't know if you want to try to like rejoin Zoom, like log out and log back in, maybe.
Okay. Let me try that. Okay, maybe that's the way to go.
Andrea, it also could be a setting within Zoom. There's an automatic feature that adjusts the volume, and it feels like maybe if you go into clicking the caret next to the video and you go into video settings and go to audio.
Okay. Okay, let's try that.
Do you see the audio option under video settings?
I'm gonna stop. Should I don't actually. I'm so sorry. I feel really like this is. I'm gonna stop share for a moment so that I don't take up your time with my technical settings. So you say that under
next to the video camera icon and in Zoom, then click video settings. And then you'll see audio listed.
Okay.
And then there's a microphone and it says automatically adjust microphone volume. If you uncheck that, or if it's checked, it sounds.
Okay, yeah, it says automatically adjust. So do you think I should uncheck that?
If that's how it's been set, then that could be causing a problem.
It was on automatically adjust. So maybe that's what it is.
Should we give it a try now, and then maybe that will resolve it? Fingers crossed.
I did uncheck that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm crossing my fingers then. Okay, so then I'm going to go from current slide, and there we go. Can you see my screen again?
Not yet.
You see it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. Now I can't see it. I'm not on the, I can't see my slide though right now. Something's gone missing. I can't pull it up at all. Okay. You don't see my, do you see my slides actually? Because I do not.
No, right now we see your dialogue for your PC. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's somehow the Zoom, and I click on this, nothing comes up.
I think it's there, but it's teeny tiny.
Yeah, I don't know what's
Can
going
you,
on
can you
here.
maximize that?
Here. Yes, this is very strange. Somehow. No, the PowerPoint's affected. I think I'm having tech issues here.
Andrea, if you want to send me or share it with me, if it's a Google chat, share with me the PowerPoint, then I can share it on my end and then click along
Okay.
and you present.
Okay, I think I now got it. Let me try this one more time. And thank you so much for your patience. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, now it's done the same thing for me. I have this slideshow up, I select it, and then it defaults back to this screen, which is just a mystery to me. I don't know what's going on here. No, it's not sharing my PowerPoint anymore.
We were seeing it.
You were? Okay.
Yes.
You
But
see it now?
No, now we're back on the list of all of the, there it is. We see it
Okay,
now.
so the thing is, I can't, it's not appearing to me as where it should be. And you probably not see the slideshow itself. Do you see this now? There we go.
Yes.
Is it
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Okay, so back. I'm gonna keep this short, obviously, because I know I've been taking up your time. So career fields in global studies then are multiple, as you would expect from a broad social science major that includes private fields, NGOs, and there's thousands and thousands of NGOs that are active globally. And in Santa Barbara has many NGOs. Then civil service, government, so that could be international organizations, foreign affairs, diplomacy, local government, national government. Then global studies is also applicable to international business, to teaching, research, journalism, to law. And broadly speaking, I just want to underline that understanding global international affairs matters in many areas of employment. Obviously, we just had a pandemic, right? So understanding of global dynamics is important in the healthcare field, with everything related to the environment. When it comes to engineering, we need people that understand global problems like climate change and energy-related issues. And so global studies is a good standalone major and also a good add-on major for people who are studying, say, in the healthcare field or engineering or what have you. And here's a screenshot from the Christian Science Monitor that has that title, New College Graduates, How Well Prepared to Be Global Problem Solvers.
Sorry, Andrea, you went, your audio went back down low again.
Okay, and it's down, or can you not hear me at all?
I feel like Vanessa, I can still hear her. It's just quiet. I mean, I don't know if everybody
How about if I speak really loudly? Will I then hurt your ears? Is that better?
That's fine for me.
Okay, I'm going to speak really loudly then. Okay, so then global studies courses that we have at SBCC include the two staple courses, Global 101 and 102. The first one is an introduction to global studies that focuses on all things related to globalization. The second one is 102, Global Problems. That's the one that we had to cancel twice this academic year. And the one that I hope that we can offer at some point, Global 105, is focusing on global environmental politics. And we're not going to offer it until we have a critical mass back for the major. But that would nicely connect to sustainability efforts and sustainability program on campus. And importantly, the programs or the classes do not have to be taken in sequence. So Global 101 focuses on all things globalization. I won't go into detail, not to take up too much time, but those include all the different dimensions and aspects of social science that I mentioned earlier. So a little history, a little econ, a little bit of political science, international politics, but also cultural and societal dimensions and environmental dimensions. So for example, we're focusing on the economic side of globalization, right? Looking at trade and current issues such as the relationship between the US and China. And here's a screenshot about Biden's approach. Then we're looking at cultural issues, right, that relate to the connections between economics and culture, but also rap in China, and why rap in China is not accepted to be anti-establishment and critical of the government, but in Russia we see that. And then we talk about right-wing populism and how we can explain from a global perspective the rise of that and the movement that supports Trump. And in Global 102, we talk about the many, many global problems that exist and define what the global problem is, and focus on issues like poverty and human rights and the global status of women. And what characterizes global problems is that they're oftentimes connected. So for example, what we see at the border right now is of course linked to migration and poverty in Central American and Latin American countries, but also domestic violence and other global dynamics. So the courses really make an effort to connect to current events and highlight the intersection of all these different issues that we cover. And then also there's environmental problems, global healthcare, global crime, et cetera, right? And Global 105, as I mentioned, that's a global environmental class. And the effort there is to focus on state and global environmental issues. And we haven't yet offered that, but we would love to if we know that there's going to be student demand. And right now, we don't want to take a chance in scheduling that because of the class cancellations. And then degrees offered, you know this, I'm assuming, but just to reiterate here, we have an AA in Global International Studies, an AAT in Global Studies, a certificate in Global Leadership. That was an effort to connect global studies and communication. And then, and that's an AA degree or a certificate that includes 2 global studies courses and 2 comm courses. And then, as I mentioned, there's this campus-wide effort for a global sustainability program. And in that context, Global 105 would be great. And so it's an interdisciplinary major. And so these degree requirement overlap nicely with general education, which I think why it's a nice add-on major. So the core of the AA degree in global studies, for example, has just the 2 global studies courses and then international politics or comparative politics. And here is that listed. And then the list of electives is really, really long and should overlap nicely with general ed requirements. And then lastly here, our faculty, you have my contact information, and we currently have 2 adjunct instructors teach Global 102, Professor Stanovich and Professor Clark, and I listed their contact information here as well. And so I just want to emphasize again that the program is in crisis because we have been disproportionately impacted by lower enrollment. And so if you could spread the word regarding what global studies is to see if students are interested, that would be great. And if you have any questions, let me know. And again, I'm so sorry for all the volume and tech related issues.
No problem. Thank you so much for presenting, Andrea. It looks like Marisol has a question.
Thank you for coming to our department. I really appreciate it. Have you thought about maybe offering a late start section for either 101 or 102? I think that, you know, we do have students that are interested and they do want to start later.
Okay.
And that has helped multiple departments actually not have to cancel classes.
Okay.
And it does need an area 4 of IGETC. So, you know, and students, like I said, definitely, you know, you're on campus. So yeah, on our international students, but a lot of our other social science majors, that it's definitely a good complement. And maybe
Okay.
help
Yeah,
enroll.
you know, that's really good to know. And that was actually a question that I had for you in terms of advice. We are so stressed with respect to the cancellations that have occurred that the question is, what should we offer? And for the fall, I reduced the offerings of 102 and 101 to 1 class each, just because I'm afraid that if I offer 2 and the cancellation guidelines are applied, as in we have to have a critical mass of students 2 weeks before the semester, we're going to have to cancel all our classes. And so I guess my question to you is, what would you say? Is there a higher demand for on campus or online? What I've chosen right now is to offer Global 101 on campus in the fall and online in the for 102, and then switched in the spring, so that each class is offered in both modalities once the academic year. But of course, ideally what I want is both classes offered in both modalities, both semesters. And late start will be fine with me, if you think that there's a demand for that. Do you think that's higher than for the regular start?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? Okay. And then you would just say it's for on campus or online?
I
Well,
would love to, if we could, I'd love to see people put hands up if you think it should be online, on campus. I put my hand up for on campus.
Okay.
Most of the students, I'm thinking, that's where
Andrea?
we're finding a lot of demand is for on-campus classes.
For me, would be my request to see if it can be hybrid, maybe at least, because international students, they have to be on campus. They cannot take online classes. They're required due to their visa status. And also the late start will benefit them, a lot of them, because sometimes they come and they're confused what classes they register, and at the end they need the units. And so we do counsel them to take classes that, pertinent like yours. And we used to have a lot of international students. I used to fill up those classes, and now I
Okay.
don't have enough international students. But anyways, the ones that we have, I think they will benefit from the hybrid.
Okay.
If you want to do, that modality would be much better than online.
Okay, that's good to know. So right now we're offering hybrid, but we're doing the hybrid instead of fully on campus. And I guess that's another question is, do you think hybrid is better than twice a week?
It would be even better if it's twice a week. But
Okay.
if you are going to do the online, it's not going to benefit them, the online.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's really good to know. Thank you for the input.
Okay.
And so if there's any questions about the major,
there's
or
lots
any
of
questions-
comments in the chat too.
Okay, let
Andrea.
me check.
I think an in-person course starting at the beginning of the semester, so students can figure out their schedules. And then in the comments, there was, and to what everyone else is saying is, if it's a late start, have it either be the hybrid, so they can slide it into their schedule if it's late start and if it works for them.
And another question that was suggested by my dean is to consider non-prime time slots. And I talked with my students, and of course it's not a representative sample, but I talked to 3 classes and I asked them, what do you think are the prime times for you? And it was 9:35, 11:10, and 12:45. And then I asked them, well, would you like a class offered at 8? Or would you like a class offered, 3:55? And some people nodded, but then it was also very clear that it would also be maybe a stretch. And so do you have a suggestion there? Would you say that classes would benefit from being offered, say, fairly late in the afternoon? There is competition between classes that people want and that keeps them from enrolling in certain classes? Is it like they want their classes, but they're all offered at 11:10 and so they can't take them?
Well, I think some students like to try and my experience, and I'm one of however many are here, is students just like to try and come on campus 2 days a week, not necessarily all 4. So choosing, the Tuesday, Thursday, or the Monday, Wednesday, and maybe even, I don't know what you have right now, but I would say that would be helpful for students.
Okay, we have both. We have Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so thank you for the comments and the chat as well. I appreciate that. So a late start hybrid, I made note of that. And are there any other questions for me?
I just want to say thank you for coming and letting us know. I had no idea that global studies was in this situation, and it would be such a shame to see any of those classes go. They're so useful and great. And I always try to recommend it, but I feel like the students are always like, what is it? They know what all the other disciplines are. So it's always a challenge trying to go, encourage, and, they think they can't be successful because they don't understand it yet, even though they will.
Yeah, I also think that probably the ethnic studies requirement, and while that has been introduced, and the total social science number of courses has not been higher, that may impact global studies negatively, possibly. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate your time and your patience with my volume, and I hope that you've been able to hear me.
Just adding one thing, it's great for people that are doing econ as a major.
Oh yeah, oh
For
yeah.
global studies, it's such a complementary class. I mean, everybody that had taken it, they say, wow, that makes a big difference. Now I have the big picture. So
Yeah. Okay, great, great. Thanks so much. So have a nice afternoon, and thanks again for your time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. Wendy unfortunately isn't going to make it today, so I'm just going to go through the last little section for on the agenda, which is regarding our admissions and records. I don't know if you want to call it workshop or in-service, whatever you want. I don't even know if it has an appropriate title, but that is set for what, March 15th, I believe it is. And it's going to be a noon to 1 lunch. And Helica has approached myself and talking about creating this community with them, working with admissions and records, establishing relationships. You know, she mentioned she doesn't know a lot of our new counselors or counseling assistants. And so it's really that effort to do that. And then in the conversation, it came up that discussion about petitions and processes and all of that was wanted to be the part of the bigger conversation. So I did encourage her to invite all academic counselors instead of just ACC, as I think that we all realize that a lot of times ACC is viewed as all counselors, but of course we know that's not true. So the invitation was extended to all academic counselors for this. Now, there is a lot of stuff that she's looking at for an agenda, but I want to also encourage you, each of you, to put on the agenda, I hyperlinked a Google Doc for you to add some of your thoughts on what you would like to talk about. And it doesn't, it could be, someone already put in something on the Google Sheet that, how are they assisting students who are remote, and that's a question we get quite a bit. We are also, I'm also encouraging Christina Hummer to work with our counseling assistants as well, since they get a bulk of, they've been doing, running the Zoom room that we had all summer and fall and winter. And so looking at that and looking at the questions that we're getting from there. I just kind of want to just mention this, and in regards to the last summer, there was a day that we had, gosh, I don't even remember how many student complaints that we had for academic counseling. I'm going to say it was up there about close to 30 in one day. And we were perplexed. I was off that day. I got a call saying, we're getting all these complaints. We started looking into them, and someone up to the president's office, they were going up to the dean, and it was really frustrating because we were thinking, what are we doing that we're getting all of these complaints? And so Maria and Wendy kind of looked at all of that and kind of dialed down what the concerns were and what the complaints were, and none of them were for academic counseling. So they were all for different programs on campus and departments on campus. And a lot of it is that the accessibility for students in the summer reaching different departments has been a challenge. And so luckily for us, we have our Zoom front desk, and that is a wonderful tool for our students to get in touch with us for instead of the phone or instead of coming in person. So that is working for our department. And so, but we do get a lot of runoff from all the other departments. And so, I would say Christina and the counseling assistants, we've been really looking at, how do we best serve students that are coming in this portal, but not, and how do we kind of send them off to different departments who only maybe have email as a contact. So, these have come up in different conversations in our Slack meetings, which is the Student Services Leadership. And they're challenging conversations to have. And, but I think that if, collectively, if we're having some brainstorming and encouragement during this time with admissions and other departments along the way, I think that we can make the experience for students a lot more smooth and receptive. So I encourage you to fill out or put information here and some ideas even, how can we collaborate with this, knowing what we offer, or, like I said, we offer a Zoom room, and, what can we do in class planning? We've collaborated with admissions and records, and we've had TEO come in, and that came out of, conversations with all of you, what would be helpful for the students in class planning, and that evolved for them to be in there. We have, when we got to the local high schools, now we bring admissions and records with that group. And so there's a lot of things that we have been collaborating over the years to make the experience for students more student-centered and to get what they need to get done. So obviously I don't want this to be, a negative thing. I do want to look at what are ideas that we can do in partnership and with this, so that, again, I always think that when we have ideas, we always want to put ourselves like, how can I take the lead on this and bring in maybe another department or something else as a resource without putting the onus on someone else. I think that we definitely need that's my opinion of it. I want to make sure that, if we're suggesting it, that, we're saying we're going to be in that partnership. So I don't know, we have a couple more minutes. I'd love to hear from everyone. I do think it's going to be a great conversation. I think that it's going to be, learning. I mean, one of the biggest things that came out of a conversation with Angelica is to not everyone reach out to admissions. I thought that was really interesting. They want to use it as the liaisons for counseling, to our counselors to go to our liaisons, which are Sergio and Wendy, and then they reach out to admissions. I do find that a bit cumbersome at times because, Sergio and Wendy aren't just sitting around just hanging out waiting for us to ask questions of them for admissions and records. So I think that we need to kind of think of other ideas, what is it, and go from there. So anyways, Antonia, I saw your hand up.
It's just the first time I hear about that. Is that something that's going to be, that hasn't been shared with the whole department? Is that a new process?
For what?
To not go individually to ask questions.
That was the conversation I had recently with her. And so my understanding for bigger things, that has been the case. But I think that this would be a great opportunity to find out what questions they're looking for us to go through our liaison with, versus when, as counselors, we can take that initiative for that. Unfortunately, I think that there's been a lot of miscommunication and not a lot of effective communication between our departments at times. That has maybe put a strain on our working relationship. And so I think that this is an effort when Angelica reached out about it, that was an effort for us to join together and work through some of that. And so that is why what that stemmed from. And so it's been, what do you call it? I don't know that it's not like it's, building up and going to explode. It's just something that's been noticed on Angelica's end, and that communication is what she's looking for. Guire and then Mary.
So I guess I see a distinction when we're dealing with a student-specific situation. I'm hopeful that they're open for us to work directly with A&R to get that resolved for that student. I totally understand using the liaisons when it's larger questions about process and kind of that kind of thing, and it's not associated with an individual student. But just for example, ever since we've had those fraud filters in place, I've had to contact admissions 30+ times for individual students who've been stuck in those fraud filters, right? And that would, you know, I'm facilitating it because otherwise the student could contact them just directly, but I'm trying to, you know, speed that process for them since they're working with me. So I hope that that remains the case, that we can advocate for students specifically and directly with admissions. And
I
not go for
absolutely agree.
liaisons. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And that was, like I said, that was new to me too. And I thought, and so that is where I think that this is good, because maybe, you know, you're doing that, Guire, but maybe I'm doing that too. And is it, you know, is there a better way for us to do? I don't know. And that is that overwhelming them. And I don't know if that's how they're feeling. In the conversation with Angelica, it did sound as though, you know, they have a lot going on, as do we, you know, and we're advocating for students. And we had a situation recently where a counselor was advocating for a student, and you know, admissions is saying, okay, that form's going to get denied. Why are, you know, whatever, and they're sending emails kind of saying, you know, this is wrong, rather than looking at that student, you know, individually with the counselor and saying, is this the best petition for them? And so it wasn't. And then the counselor was able to kind of say, okay, we'll do this, but that was with Angelica's help. And so those conversations, I think, that are, you know, and it was some frustration on some end, the student was getting pulled into it, and it was uncomfortable for the student. And so those are the kind of things I think that we need to work out, because I think, not because, I just think we just need to work it out. But I agree, Guire, I don't want to see that go away at all. But I think that we have to kind of have that dialogue with them. Mary, and then Gabby.
Thanks. I was just hoping for a little more specifics, just because like the way my brain works, in order to kind of help think about tackling the problem or whatever, like what were there things that came from admissions that were comments like, there's been a lot of this, that, or, you know, these questions, or is it just
Yes.
everything? Okay, because what are those areas?
For instance, I mean, I think the bigger conversation is, you know, okay, I'll give you one of them. The comment was, we don't handle starfish. Starfish is not, we don't use it. We don't handle it. It's not ours. You know, you guys do. Well, I mentioned it to Christy, because I'm like, I thought that Liz Giles did degree planner. So one of the comments that someone had and it was on several occasions, not just one, about degree planner concerns. Well, they're saying, well, we don't do starfish. We don't do starfish. Well, you may not do starfish, but you do degree planner. And so that's part of it, you know. So what do they want us to do? They don't want us going up to the window. So how do we remedy that conversation or that issue that really is under admissions? Another conversation was TEO. TEO is available the first week of school. I didn't know that. Did anyone else know that? That they were in person on campus in admissions? I never saw an email about it. I never saw an announcement about it. So one of the comments is, well, they weren't utilized, so we're not going to do that anymore, or we're going to pull back on that. And it's like, well, I wish that all counselors knew about this. So it was just those kind of conversations that I think that, okay, so how are we going to better, you know, work more collaboratively in those situations?
Thanks.
Gabby.
Hi, yes. So question, I mean, it's kind of, as Mary says, what kind of things, because I feel like I wonder if they just put my name on it, because I've been all the time advocating for my students, and if I have like an issue with a K number, with something related with, I used to work in admissions, and I used to know a lot of things that I can go ask for it, you know. I wonder if it's not that great that I'm being there all the time. I mean, it's just not that I'm being there saying hi.
They're
I'm just
not
being there.
using names at all, so.
I
It's
just
just,
wonder because
I think that, but see, that's the thing I think is great. One of the comments is, you guys don't require a student ID, we require a student ID. So when you send students over and they don't have a student ID for you, they'll say, oh, well, I didn't need it over there, why do I need it here? And it's like, well, that's not, that's not really honest, but yet, is that something we want to, eventually we'll talk about, do we want to implement a student ID? Obviously, in the past, we have said we don't really want to create more barriers for students. We'll look at different things, but, so those are just comments like, just little things like that. I think, in my opinion, it could just be building up. And, we're coming back from COVID. We've been back from COVID, right, for however many years, but I think that now with the more students that are being present, I don't know, but this is where we are and this is where the meeting is, and all of the, some great things will come out of it, right? So, anyways, I'm happy to talk to anyone separately on this. I'm happy to, especially when it's not being recorded, but happy to talk about it, and ideas and feedback and things. I will be meeting with Angelica on Monday, just to kind of discuss more about the agenda, what their agenda is. So if you guys can really add stuff in, even if it takes you a couple minutes this afternoon or even Monday morning, because we will be talking about that, and they have an agenda. They've been working on this. So it was touch and go that we were going to have this as it is, and so it's for sure a go. And I really encourage you guys to come, because this affects us greatly. You know how busy we get, and we want to make it a smooth process for us as well. Of course, the student is in the forefront, but we want it to be, for academic counselors, a good fit. So with that being said, happy Friday.